All right, G Groove, go ahead and take it away.
Alrighty, hello everyone, my name is G Groove. This is Star Wars Racer Revenge for the PlayStation 2. Now, admittedly, I'm not going to introduce the run right away because, unfortunately, on PS2, there's about 10 and a half minutes of load times. So what I'm going to do is, I'll say 3, 2, 1, go to start, and then as the first loading screen begin, then I will get started. Are we ready to start time host?
We are ready.
Okay, in 3, 2, 1, go. So, Racer Revenge is a... Oh, shoot. I just realized I was in the wrong game mode. I am so sorry. I was still in testing mode. Holy cow. Well, that's going to be added onto time now. So, what... I guess I might as well explain the category then. This is tournament mode. Tournament is basically like an all-cups thing for... like Mario Kart, where you're going to be playing all the courses all in one shot. In particular, this is the New Game Plus category, where you play as one of the characters that has either perfect or near perfect stats, and cannot be upgraded. Which does make this the faster category, as you are playing as a fast character, and you do not need to do anything in regards to... What's the word I'm looking for? Upgrade. No menuing, so that's nice. Racer Revenge is a follow-up to Episode 1 Racer and Racer Arcade. I say follow-up rather than sequel because it is a very different game, style-wise. When you think of pod racing, you think of two things. You think of high speed, and you think of destruction. And in the case of the other two Star Wars pod racer games, those are more about speed. This one is more about smashing the other racers off of the course. Now, in Episode 1 Racer, if you exploded, you could come back. Not in this one. If you explode, you were out. And with this higher emphasis on destroying other opponents to get more prize money and to try to knock off your opponent in multiplayer, we have much narrower tracks, much tighter tracks, with more walls to bump into, more obstacles to hit, and the fact that if you use your boost for too long, you will explode. This first track, Mos Espa Open, is a pretty good beginner's track. In this one, some of the shortcuts are pretty obvious, like it shouldn't take you more than a couple attempts to get a feel for where the shortcuts are. That first one where we go up a hill, and the second one coming up here next. There's also no real obstacles in the middle of the track, so you don't have to worry about getting blown up as much. But it's also a good track for you to learn about one of the main speed strats of this game. Most of the time when a game has a power slide or power drift button, you usually hold it to just help you turn corners. But a couple years ago, the primary runners of this game, Game Draco and Damaray, realized that you can hold power slide anytime you want, and your maximum speed goes up by 1 to 200 miles per hour. The problem is, it makes your pod racer handle like it's on ice. So if you have to make sure to not over adjust over the course of a race, more micro adjustments, and you have to really, really know the track layout. There's no like universal turning technique you can follow. It differs from track to track. And now a word from our sponsor.
Oh,
we don't like our sponsor.
Don't forget, License-a-thon is raising money for the Transgender Law Center. Mm-hmm. They fight for the rights of all people to live freely and authentically. Your donations help support people. The Border Butterfly Program, which offers humanitarian and legal support to hundreds of LGBTQIA+ asylum seekers at the Southern American border. And that was the word from our sponsor.
Oh, I was just pointing out... Well, thank you for giving that, because yes, that's half a wire here. But I was making a joke about how every time we have to go to Sebulba asking if you want an upgrade, and my joke was, and now a word from our sponsor. We don't like our sponsor, because you have to skip him manually every time, even though in the new game, when you play as one of the unupgradable characters, they force you to go to the upgrade screen anyways. It's a silly little thing about this game. Our next track here, this is Ceres Facility on the planet Solust. Solust is a barren wasteland planet. It's where Nien Nunb, Lando's co-pilot in Return of the Jedi, is from. So here's one of the first tough-to-hit shortcuts. It's kind of out of the way. It's almost like a little blip on that wall. I missed it quite a few times in this game. This is where you start to notice, like, oh, you got some crazier turns. You had that shortcut. And then we get to the first tube section. Nobody likes the tubes. Nobody. We, as runners of this game, just deal with it. In order to try to stay in the bottom of the tube and go as fast as possible, you're essentially using the analog stick to move in the opposite direction of whatever way the tube is forcing you in. Not fun to deal with, but it's not the worst tube section we have in this game. Oh, no. So this is the game kind of showing its teeth a little bit. Not as intensely as it can, but like, if you felt comfortable on Boonta Eve Classic, you might still get thrown for a loop here. In fact, I know a lot of people got thrown for a loop here, because for the longest time, there was a Google Doc with a lot of the best times for this game on it, and not all of them were submitted to SRC, but around the time I started, Don Murray's like, you know what, I'm going to add these to SRC just so we have them in a more visible place, and you'll see, like, I think 20 or 30 times submitted for Boonta Eve Classic, and then barely any for any of the other tracks. It's like a sudden drop. It's like going to an album of a one-hit wonder on a streaming service. You see all the plays for the one hit they had, and then you just see the absolute massive drop-off on the later stages. I'll just say this right now, because I'm sure a question that's on a lot of people's mind is, why isn't Racer Revenge as popular as Episode 1 Racer? It's like the same game, right? No, as I've said, this one having a higher focus on destruction means that some aspects of it kind of came at the cost of speed. And it's also not a very beginner-friendly game. Like I said, if you explode... Like, imagine if in Mario Kart, instead of... When you fall off the track, instead of Lakitu picking you up again, and you got to continue racing, you had to start over. Yeah, nobody likes that. Between that, the tighter tracks, and some other issues with this game, this one has kind of a meh reputation amongst many racers. I still enjoy this. Don Murray enjoys it, but it's once you really get into it, it's pretty easy to see why this one isn't as popular as Episode 1 Racer or even Racer Arcade. And now a word from our sponsor. We don't like our sponsor. Fun fact, for those that never played this game, you can play as Watto in this game. He is a secret character. He's one of the ones you could do this category in, but I went with Darth Maul because he has a somewhat smaller pod that's easier to control. That's like that's another big thing about Racer Revenge. And okay, I know in a lot of racing games, there's usually only a few racers that are viable. Like in Mario Kart 64, it's really just Toad, Yoshi, and Peach. In Racer Revenge, it really boils down to, if we're going fully upgraded, Akko 9-Bar, the track favorite of this track, Ben Quadrinos, the guy that could not get started in The Phantom Menace, those characters fully upgraded, and then Darth Maul for the New Game Plus characters, maybe Episode 1 Sebulba. The problem is so many racers have massive pods, which is great for destroying other racers, but it's bad for getting around obstacles. Like, I just had some trouble there. This track here, the first Mon Calamari track, this is the first one I had to put a significant amount of time into practicing. I'm already messing up the trick here. What you're trying to do is, you let go of Power Slide. This is one of the only times we don't use Power Slide in the game. And we're trying to stay on the inner circle around these pillars. Pretty tricky to do, even for a top player. So I was not able to get the fastest movement on that, unfortunately. That one really will take you some time. It boils down to micro adjustments and being ready to hit Power Slide as soon as you know you're around the last pillar. The Mon Calamari stages are considered water stages, yet 2 of the 3 are more city than water. So if you don't like stone statues, stone buildings, anything like that, I'd advise not to play this game because there is a lot of them. This is also, if I'm not mistaken, the first time Mon Calamari was shown visually in Star Wars media. The planet is, of course, mentioned. It's Admiral Akbar's home planet. It's a trap! But as far as I know, this was never shown in anything prior to this. I don't know if this even later went on to be in Clone Wars or any other Star Wars media. There are some planets that in this game that were first shown in this game visually, but then were not, and then maybe got featured in something else. But this is not one of them. Up the bridge one more time. Oh yeah. Going up hills is one of the times you really want to power boost. And then what we do is, since we're not going to boost this area anyways, trying to stay inside the pillars, we take this time to hold down the repair button to repair any damage from boosting for too long. And then as soon as we're around, hey, power slide, boost, get out of here. And I'm going to try to hold on for as long as I can towards the end of the track. Sometimes what you have to do is you have to repeatedly tap the boost button like that. That will give you a speed boost, but it won't heat up your engines quite as quickly. So that, especially when you're going for one lap time, you'll see a lot of racers doing that. The problem is you can't really do that all the time, because you saw that blur effect. That blur effect starts over every single time you do it, and you hear that click, 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 click. Oh man, it's much. Now we enter Gamorr. This is the first time... I don't think this is actually the first time the planet was shown visually. This is the home planet of the Gamorrean guards, those pig guards from Return of the Jedi. From what I've read, but of course this is the age of AI Google, even if I'm not using the AI responses to my searches. Maybe take this with a grain of salt, but apparently there was a Star Wars TTRPG book in 1987 that showed what Gamorr looks like. But regardless, from the research I did, this is the first time we've seen Gamorr in a video game or a movie. The Gamorr stages are actually my... Oh, whoa. Sorry, having a little speaker issue with my TV. Was not supposed to do that. Gamorr is a jungle planet, and it's the three tracks here are, in my mind, the most visually interesting. Because everything else is either a wasteland, a desert, or a city. But here we got lush green trees, and dirt paths. And all three Gamorr tracks have something unique about them. This is also one of the shortest tracks in the game. I think it's the shortest after Boonta Eve Classic. We're literally about to finish the first lap right now. Yeah, it's pretty fast. I honestly think this should have been the second, maybe the third track, and not the fourth. Because, like I said, the length is... It seems shorter than the last one we just... The last two we just did. Not to mention, I think the lush green environment would have been a nice shake up, a nice change of pace from the other tracks. But it is number 4. It is the last race of the first cup in the game. And that's that. Yep, 33 seconds. It is pretty easy to get a sub 30-second lap if you know what you are doing. And it's crazy to think a planet so beautiful hosts those big pig guys, including the one that got eaten by the Rancor. How pretty is that? Gonna go up this hill one more time. Do a bit of repair here, and then I'm gonna hold it. Probably do a bit of Eddie Van Halen. Oh! Oof. Like I said, it's like you're driving on ice. And that is Gamorr for you. Whew. That's the first cup finished. 4 tracks down out of 13. And this is, that's the warm-up. That's the, there might be a few people thinking, those tracks didn't look so bad. I'm sure if I picked this game up, I'd be fine. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. This is where you get to see some fun stuff. After the game saves, of course. Oh, yeah. Another reason this game is kind of infamous. This game has a tendency to crash. Way more than it should. In fact, I have taken every precaution I can to make sure the game does not crash on us during this event. It's one reason why I actually practiced for the marathon using Episode 1 Xibalba. But the game would consistently crash when I would load into one of the tracks. Switch to Darth Maul, and that fixed it apparently, but it's a little strange, And even then, sometimes you just don't know when this game's like, I don't feel like working today. I think a lot of people that like maybe are like, oh, I found the copy of the game in my closet. Let me pop it in my PS2, see how it is. Is it as good as I remembered as a kid? And then they probably remember that. Those same crashes, I believe, do not happen on the PS4, PS5 version of this game, but I've never played it, so I can't honestly tell you. This next planet here is Ryloth. Ryloth is the home planet of the Twilight people, and this was not my first time encountering Ryloth in something. When I was in elementary school and I was homeschooled, my mom took me to the library all the time, and of course all I wanted to read was Star Wars books. So I read the Young Jedi Knights books, and Ryloth was actually in one of those books. But what was weird to me playing this track is in that book, it was described that the planet is half of it is always in darkness, and half of it is always in light. That's consistent with this game. But apparently the dark side of the planet was like covered in volcanic activity and magma, and the dark side was like icy, snowy, and cold. But if we know George Lucas, he does not like a lot of... Oh no, shoot. I accidentally got knocked the long way. Oh, and I almost let myself explode. Huh. Pardon that. Oh, that would have been really embarrassing had I exploded. Admittedly, I had to turn down my game audio really low to work with the setup, so I have to visually watch my health bars on my on the screen to make sure I don't boost for too long and accidentally explode. I literally almost did there. Oh boy. And now I just lost my train of thought. I guess should I say my Kessel run of thought? But yeah, there was that one clip from, I think it was the making of that one Star Wars show with the creators of Robot Chicken, where somebody said something about being the creator of Mara Jade, and George Lucas kicked him out of the meeting. I don't remember if that was staged or not, but I don't know. I guess Lucas likes it better when the ideas are directly from him, and if there's anything the prequels tells us, sometimes those ideas aren't always good. Though pod racing is. This track in particular is pretty cool. It's got some wide turns. If you love the feeling of good wide turns and power drifts, Ryloth is a fun track. But right afterwards is when the game starts to truly show its teeth and you start to realize just how difficult it really is.
Do we have time for a quick donation?
Yes, go for it. Go for it.
All right, we got a $10 donation from Tempestrol. I demand more about this Spider-Man. Now get out there, Parker, and get me a Dreamcast. Also, which pod racer is your favorite and why? I liked Deadbolt as a kid because, I don't know, he looked cool. Thank you so much for that donations. And in chat, everyone, go ahead and post your favorite pod racer.
Honestly, I don't know. I guess I'd have to go with Anakin's by default just because, like... surprising. This might surprise you guys to say, surprise people to say this, but even as a kid, for whatever reason, the pod race scene didn't click with me as much as most other people. Like, I genuinely liked it, but my favorite part of Star Wars vehicles have always been the spaceships. I was more into, like, the Naboo Starfighter, for instance. So I guess by default, I'll just say Anakin's pod. It's the most iconic. It's the one that if you've played Racer Arcade, like I have at one point, the cabinet might be made to look like it, which is pretty cool. Alright, and now it's time for the Badlands. This, in my opinion, this is where the game really starts to show its teeth. So this track, this is where we start to get things like, alright, we start with a sharp turn, we're gonna get a lot more tight turns, and we're gonna get some obstacles in the middle of the track that we have to contend with. Like right here, oh man, I almost didn't hit that. And then right here, Sandcrawler, you try to get between the treads if you want to go the fastest. I am not able to do that. And that's not even the craziest part. When we head down this path, we are going to encounter one of the sharpest turns into a shortcut. Like right there. If I had turned too late, I would have totally missed it and had to hit a much harder spot that takes longer to get through. So sharper turns, some pretty hard to hit shortcuts, and more obstacles in your way. This is where, you know, it's already called the Badlands, but man, this is where I think if anybody's like revisiting this game for the first time in years, this is probably about the time where they're like, why is this game so hard? Especially if they're playing the PS2 version on an HD TV and not like an input lag-free monitor. Oh man, the first time I played this game was that way. Going back to that funny story about somebody pulling a copy of this game out of their closet, that was actually what my roommate did. My roommate found her... Excuse me, game, I'm trying to move fast here. This is a speedrunning marathon. We do not go slow in a speedrun marathon. You got that?
How dare you, game?
How
dare you?
I will sick the cat napping in the office chair right next to me on you, game, if you do not cooperate. In all seriousness, they found their my roommate found her childhood copy of this game, plugged your PS2 into the TV we have in the living room, and then we gave it a shot. Generally liked it, but the more I played it before setting it up on the PS2 on my CRT, I was like, why am I bumping into everything all the time? And then I was reminded, oh right, input delay. Completely forgot about that. So this game is, it's difficult, which makes it definitely not beginner friendly and much harder than Episode 1 Racer, which is perfect because this is the first racing game I've ever speed ran. I swear I'm not kidding. I don't know. I don't know what made me decide to run this game. I guess I really got to give it up to Dom Array in the Discord for being so encouraging and pointing out a lot of cool ideas and just making this game. When you watch the pros play this game, it's one of those how do they do it kind of games, if you ask me. In fact, I would love to see like some top runners and I missed the shortcut in some other racing games. Like I would love to see what happens if like Abney317, you know, one of the best Mario Kart 64 players in the world, had to try to play this game. I bet it would be interesting. Actually, what's his, there's a runner I follow, who's at ESA right now, and I want to see him try it. All right, that is the Badlands. And I am sorry to inform you all. Actually, let me say this. I would please ask, if you have donations, make them now so that I know this run is worth it, because I'm about to start the worst track in the game. Not the hardest track in the game. That comes later. I'm talking the worst track. If there's any track where you might hear me rage, and you might hear the cat hiss at the TV, it is this one, the Ballast Complex. How do I put this? This level feels like... It does not feel like it was properly designed. It feels like they were given a list of things that would be interesting on a track, and instead of coming up with a competent structure, they just put them in and set up everything in one day. And maybe it sounds like I'm being a little too harsh. When you see this track and I explain what we're encountering, you will see why this one is not really well liked amongst most runners, especially not me.
You gotta love rushed game design.
Yes. So, to start off, first, we have a really tight shortcut to hit. I may not even hit it because I'm kind of stuck around everybody. I'm gonna slide here, let go of power slide, and then turn here. Up, see, I already missed it, so that's that tight shortcut. It's really difficult to hit, even if you know what you're doing. Next, we got this section here, where you have to dodge between two giant orange buoys, for lack of a better description. Hard to do with power sliding. Then here, we got a downward spiral with a wall. You're trying to get to the end of the wall so you can get off the track early. And now another tube section. But it leads to the worst part of this game. Check this out. Okay, I managed to fly over it, but these vents are extremely difficult to drive around. I'll talk more about them in a second, but now there is an upwards corkscrew with no wall, so that if you happen to go fall off of, you have to go up all over again. So over the course of just over a minute, we have hit a tight shortcut. We hit a spot that is hard to navigate between obstacles. We have the tube, and then we have the vent room, which if I didn't boost at the... I missed the shortcut again. See, this track. And I got lucky with the tube going into the vent room. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to hit it again. In fact, I would count on me having to drive around those vents very slowly in the next one.
How do they expect anyone to do this track properly?
That's what I want to know. Well,
Let
here's
alone
the other
kids
thing.
back in the day.
Well, here's the other thing. This is one of only 4 tracks in the game that have unintended shortcuts. Like, you know how there's shortcut times and non-shortcut times in Mario Kart? And shortcut times don't refer to, like, taking the intended track shortcuts, but, like, the ones developers didn't expect you to take. There are all 3 Mon Calamari tracks. So, that first one we were on earlier, this one we're going to counter later, and then the Brightlands, which was the first Ryloth track. Those 4 have shortcuts. Okay, can I actually... I did not hit it once. And that is sadly not unusual for me. If this was Dom Array, he'd have it no problem. But he's also playing on PS5, so I'm sure that helps him out a little bit. Yay for playing the oldest version of this game. By the way, does anybody want to give me $500 to get a PS2? No, or PS5? No, I'm just kidding. If you've got $500, like, make a donation with that, please. In fact, do we have any other donations we could read at the moment?
We don't have any more donations, but I do want to remind you all that we still have that Spider-Man 2000 platform choice.
Yes.
N64 is in the lead with $100, $108, but Dreamcast is a little bit behind in second place with 70 and PlayStation's in 50. So Dreamcast can still pull ahead. Same with PlayStation. So be sure to get your donations in for those.
Yes, definitely tune in for those. That is my buddy Spyran. He is running Spider-Man 2000 and its often overlooked sequel, Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro, later today in the marathon. Overall swell guy, really wonderful dude. One of my favorite people I've gotten to meet in the speedrunning community. I would be joining him for commentary, but I think I've overused my voice at work this past week. So right after this is done, I'm going to be drinking a lot of hot tea. But yes, Spyran he is referred to as the superior Spyran in the community for many good reasons. He's a master of this game. We return to Gomorrah here for the Ruins track. Another common criticism of Racer Revenge is that some of the tracks are too dark. And I will say this, anybody that has had to try to work with a PS2 on a modern TV through composite knows how dark it looks. It is especially bad on this track and the one we have next. So if you were going to try Racer Revenge, do yourself a favor, play the PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5 version. I have a CRT, so I can deal with it just fine. But yes, this is the Ruins track, and I actually disliked this one for a while because of how dark it was, at least until I got played it on my CRT, and I'm like, okay, now I can actually see stuff. This is another very visually distinctive track because we've got the rain. It's also got some of the coolest shortcuts, but I think some of the best hints for the shortcuts. One that just seemed like, well, I'll explain when we get there in a second. There's 2 shortcuts to the side of the track, and the way they show it off is pretty clever. Right, here's the first. You see these torches and you think it's just track decoration. But then you realize, wait, what are those torches? Why are there only 2 right there? And then you think, oh, shoot, that's a shortcut. Now, that first one I did not find until I started watching Dom Array's world record individual laps for inspiration on how to go faster. This one I found on my own. I'll go back to what I was saying earlier. If you want to get good at this game, you have to know the sweet spots for every turn. There's not one universal technique for turning during the track in the game. It's kind of like, I don't know if anybody here has ever speedran Silent Hill 1, and you know how you have to have Harry at different angles for different doors, as silly as that sounds. Racer Revenge is a lot like that. It takes lots of practice to find the sweet spot and to know when to boost. Like, sometimes it's best to boost as you're turning. Sometimes it's best to boost in the middle of the turn. Sometimes it's better to boost afterwards. There is a lot that goes into this game. This is not a pick-up-and-play party game, let me tell you that. This is for serious racing game fans. Which is funny, because I don't play a lot of racing games, but I still want to speedrun this anyways. I've made such great decisions in my life, that's for sure. Now, this game will, like, if there are a couple times where it'll say new record. This game will, like, point out when you've gotten a top 3 time in the game. It's not always if you get the first place time, which is a little silly. And of course, that loses time in the grand scheme of things because that's another screen you got to X through. Or another menu and another screen to X through. So, funny enough, a strategy for saving time in the tournament mode and tournament mode New Game Plus is literally to get really good times in your ILs so that you don't get those screens. Now, I would have, had I not made the mistake of hitting the reset button in the middle of the game saving when I got frustrated at a run, corrupted my memory card, and I lost the file with all the unlocked characters. So you don't get my best times here, and there was no chance that anybody could have seen Darth Vader today. There was going to be a bid incentive for who to race as, but we had to scrap that because of it. So to anybody who wanted to see Darth Vader, I am so sorry. To be fair, all his pod racer really is just the TIE Interceptor made into a pod racer. And Vader's actually, do yourselves a favor. If you guys are in need of a laugh, go on Google and look up what Darth Vader's face looks like in this game. I think even by early PS2 standards, his face could have looked better. Like, compared to what you see for Darth Vader now in games, it's like the... Did I hit the wrong button? Okay. It's like the you versus the guy they told you not to worry about meme. I wished I was kidding. But no, it looks that bad. Sorry, gotta stretch up my jaw muscles a bit. Ugh. It's a lot to commentate. Everybody, give a big round of applause to your commentators for any event you've partaken in, whether it be a GDQ, a fighting game match, something. A lot of people think, oh, it's just talking in the microphone. No, it's way more complicated than that. Whether it's the recording part or getting your voice to sound good. It's a lot.
Trying to focus while playing a game.
Yeah. Admittedly, half of why I've been able to do it is, A, my dad used to work for an international marketing company, so he taught me the importance of speaking in front of a group of people when I was a little kid. And B, I've taken professional voiceover lessons. So this factory track here, or underground city track, I should say, this is the other one that can look a little too dark. Back to everybody, when I'm going through tunnels, I am so sorry that you'll probably be able to barely see anything. Even with the adjustments already made, I don't know how this track is going to look. PS2 composite, everybody. This is the other one track people talk about when they say they think this game looks too dark at times. But it's also got a cool aesthetic. Underground cities don't appear often in video games. Like here, the city is dangerously close to some lava, which is crazy. But how many video games can you think of with an underground city nearby magma like that? All I could think of when I was trying to think of this earlier was like Onukoro in Bionicle games. But I am like 80% sure there's a Final Fantasy game with an underground city. I wouldn't know which one it was, but I could be wrong. Speaking of that, somebody should run Bionicle the game at the next license-a-thon. That game is interesting to say the least. Oh yeah, I should also mention that first jump is a beginner's trap. Because you think, oh, I should hold the boost button so that I can make the jump. But if you hold boost there, you'll go so fast that you'll hit the wall and be knocked to the bottom and be forced to go the slowest way. It turns out that you have to not be holding boost and go at a fairly normal speed, and then you will not get knocked down. But I was so confused why I seemed to inconsistently stay on the top track until I saw, oh, Damare doesn't boost there. Oh, that makes sense. Newton's third law is having its, okay, pun intended, revenge right there. Up and over. This track is fairly straightforward compared to others. I think this is the game trying to give you aside from the beginner's trap, I think it's the game trying to give you a bit of a breather after how ridiculous some of the other tracks are. And the shortcut for that one where I went over the lava, I think it doesn't take much for people to think, can I drive my pod over lava? I kind of want to try that. Because, like, you've already gone over a lot of different surfaces on the pod. It's got, like, anti-gravity. And sure enough, you go over lava, and then you see a major turn cut Though the game does briefly say wrong way when you're going in the other tunnel, which might throw some people off. Like, right there, yep. Nope, we're all good. We're gonna skip this tubular section here. Well, we're going, we don't need tubes. I should have actually thought of a Star Wars reference. Is there a famous Star Wars line involving a tube? Oh gosh, that sounded bad out of... I'm sorry. I should probably stop talking for a second. Pickle. That's all I got. The cat is somehow still sleeping through me yelling at the TV like this. In fact, maybe I should point the webcam at the cat instead of my iDog. That'll get people to donate, don't you think? If people see a cute kitty. Cute kitties always get money.
Absolutely. Speaking of donations, we have a $25 donations from G Groove Fan Club. Nice work supporting TLC. Thank you so much for that donation. We really appreciate it.
I have a strong feeling that might have actually been my family, because they said they were going to tune in for the stream, and they know that my username is G Groove. So, Mom, Dad, everybody, if you were watching, and if that was your donation, thank you very much. In fact, I want to give a shout out to my mom, who just celebrated her 55th birthday last week after finishing 12 weeks of chemotherapy treatment for breast cancer. She is still kicking butt and taking names and continuing to be an amazing grandmother to my niece. So everybody in chat, please give my mom a round of applause for doing that. Going through chemo is not easy.
Shout out to G Groove Mom. We love you out there.
Alrighty, now we head to a track that gives runners of emulator trouble. I'm sure some people probably ask by now, well, gee, if this game is too dark on a composite, why don't you play on emulator? The problem is, water doesn't render properly in PS2 emulators, so parts like this you could not do. There are 2 tracks that involve you driving over water, this being one of them. A while back, like, some people were complaining about the about in the rules emulator being banned, and at one point Damares changed it and said, okay, we'll allow emulator, but just know you're gonna have problems with this track and this track. If you absolutely need this game in HD, if you cannot stand looking at a composite video signal at all, PS4, PS5's got you covered. Sadly, no Switch or PC versions. Makes me wonder if, like, Sony funded this game somewhat. I know no evidence of that, but there's nothing on the box of, like, Soul Calibur 3 that says that Sony funded it, even though they had an exclusivity deal where they gave Namco some money for that, which ended up hurting that game in the end for a multitude of reasons. But this is not a Soul Calibur stream, this is a Star Wars stream. Although, Soul Calibur 4? One thing
You gotta love trying to play old consoles on new displays. It's quite a challenge.
Especially if you have a tight budget like I do. Like, getting a RetroTink 4X is way out of the question for me right now. And I don't even have component cables for my PS2. That's half the problem. Oh, yeah. Shoutouts to, like, anybody out there streaming. Like, not too long ago, I was watching the Team Fastest Furs at Furry Week in Atlanta. And there was Ramsey Fox streaming Dr. Mario 64 off an actual N64. And, of course, he had to have some good equipment to make the game look good on the stream, because that's a 2D pixel game on the N64, and as we all know, the N64 is so great at rendering 2D artwork. Looks at MK Trilogy angrily. Funny enough, the N64 version of MK Trilogy is the most popular amongst competitive folks, so go figure.
Who would have known?
Yep. One thing I'll give this track credit for, this texture on the floor right here, this is one of the better looking ones in the game. You can tell in many ways this was an early PS2 game, and that LucasArts and their teams hadn't really figured out the hardware yet. So this game, clearly, I mean, it already had to be toned down to run at a consistent frame rate, which it doesn't always do, and it only allows for 2 players. So it's just the little moments, like the ground at the beginning, where you're like, there's still some good stuff to this game. But yeah, this game only allows 2-player races, which I'm sure some people are cringing at just hearing that. Like, 2-player racing game in 2002. Yep. And if you're nearby other racers, the game will often run at 30, not 60. The buttons are it's still a relatively responsive game even in that state, but yeah, can't deny this is early PS2 and like, what is it? Star Wars Starfighter. That game on PS2 did not have any sort of multiplayer. They did not add that until the Xbox version, which came later. So yeah, early PS2 I'm sure was rough for a lot of developers. That's the end of the Mon Calamari tracks. So if anybody was trying to make a Admiral Akbar joke because we were on his home planet, sorry, you missed your opportunity. And now a word from our sponsor. We don't like our sponsor. Although, funny enough, sometimes if you take enough damage, the in-game announcers will say, for all your collision and repair needs, check out Watto's Repair Bay. So I guess he kind of is a sponsor, but not really. I don't know. This is the Citadel. This is another track involving water. Technically, you could beat this one without going on water. So if you had like a memory card or a save file with all the tracks unlocked in an emulator, you could technically run on this track. You would not be able to get the fastest time because you would not be able to hit the shortcut. This is also the final Gamor track, so say bye-bye to all the trees and greens after this one. Although, we get to talk about another thing this game is kind of infamous for. I've already talked about how crazy some of the turns are, how sharp some of the turns are to get into shortcuts. Now imagine insanely sharp turns to just race on the track normally. We're not anywhere near that, but there are a couple spots that I jokingly call S-turn city. An S-turn referring to when you turn right, and then immediately left, and then immediately right, and there's no, like, straight path to help you get your bearings. You're, like, just... Yeah, you're literally making an S. This is the shortcut, by the way. You would not be able to take this and go the fastest path if you could not drive on water. Here we go. Immediately turn to the right, or left, then immediately turn to the right, then immediately turn to the left. Yeah, this is casual. This is not a shortcut. This is the main track, and you got to deal with that. At least we get this nice wide turn where we're going to boost for a little bit. And then turn to the right. And then practically immediately to the left. And then practically immediately to the right. And then the right again. And like I said, that is the casual way of getting through the track. There are no shortcuts there, intended or otherwise. So you really got to have control over the power slide. And you got to be good with micro adjustments. Otherwise, oh boy. Also, if you go too fast here, you will hit that curtain. So I had to slow down a bit. One of the only curses of going too fast in this game. And let me tell you, if you think the turns seem wild on this track, you ain't seen nothing yet. Remember when I said Ballast Complex was not the hardest track, just the worst track? There is a track later that will have many more sharp turns than this, and it's one that even top players will agree is a load of bantha poodoo. I say that because I'm trying to avoid saying something else in case my family is watching and my niece happens to be watching. And I'm trying my hardest to control my language when my niece is nearby. You know, babies learn quickly. You constantly tell the baby to say hi to the kitty at Grandma and Grandpa's house, and suddenly when she says hi to anyone, she says, "Hi, kitty." So, if I say something wrong here, there's a chance she's gonna start saying it. I'm sure everybody here probably has had a horror story or two of accidentally saying something around like a younger sibling or a niece or a nephew and then just hoping they don't say it anywhere else. Oh boy. Even the wide turns are a bit much. Like I said, it's like you're driving on ice. Funny enough, while boosts play a big part in helping hit the shortcuts and whatnot, there is technically a category for this game, for individual level tracks, no boost, where you just try to see how fast you go without the boost mechanic. Now, some people might be thinking, well, what's the point of that? Well, you might have noticed those times I used boost for too long damaged my engines, so you have to be careful with how frequently you boost throughout the game. So there's kind of a competition to like see how fast you can go through tracks without relying on boost. It's a good way for beginners to get good at the game. In fact, I kind of considered going for some no boost ILs when I started running this. I don't know, remember why I decided not to, but it's almost like the equivalent of no skips in like platformer speedruns, where it's like the skips add to the difficulty, so for a new runner, you want to try to learn the game without the skips. You could kind of say the same thing about no boost in this game. Technically, it's still tracked, but I remember Damaray at one point said something about removing that part because not many people were entering it anyways. But as of this stream, as of this marathon, it is still something you can submit to if you want. Oh boy! I almost thought it was going to explode for a second, because sometimes when if you boost into something when you're low, oh boy, then it's bye-bye to your racer. At least some of the death screams are funny, especially Darth Maul's, because this was years before Sam Witwer started doing anything for Star Wars, and they got kind of a... Well, okay, I wouldn't say Maul's voice is funny, but it's just... I don't know. Like, you listen to how Maul sounds in this game, and then you listen to how Sam Witwer voices Darth Maul, and it's the audio equivalent of you versus the guy she told you not to worry about. Our second to last track here is the Nightlands. This is probably the most visually distinctive track in the whole game, because it's got an element that even people only casually aware of this game are aware of, and that is we're going to see some glowing mushrooms. We're on the dark side of the planet. Not dark side as in dark side of the forest, but dark as in it's always night, and there are glowing mushrooms. And the transparency effects are pretty decent for early PS2. This track is also very much the calm before the storm, because it's got the most obvious shortcuts of anything in the second or third cup. This one here we don't normally take. I hit it by accident. But there are two shortcuts that are actually pretty easy to spot in this game, in this track, compared to like some of the other ones where you kind of had to know to look for it. Here, if you're driving, you're like, oh, there's that tunnel over there. Yep. And the same thing with the next shortcut we're hitting later. And there's only one major obstacle in the middle of the track you can run into, which is this rock here. So this track is not hard to get the shortcuts and to avoid obstacles. What makes this one tricky is the length. This is the longest track in the game. It's only been in the last... Actually, I think the next track might technically be longer, but this is like the most, in terms of a track that's pretty straightforward in design, like the ones in the first cup, this is the longest for sure. It's only been in the last 6 months that Damaray got a sub 1 minute time on this track, which requires you to know those shortcuts like the back of your hand, have perfect driving, use perfect boosts, and even then he just barely got it. His time was, I believe, 59.77 seconds. So it's a lot to get a sub 1 here. So you can kind of take this track as a moment to breathe before it gets really intense. Speaking of taking time to breathe, do we have any other donations to read here?
We don't have any more donations, but I just want to thank everyone who has donated so far for supporting License-a-thon and the Transgender Law Center. Your donations helping fight for the rights of all trans and LGBTQIA+ people. If you or anyone you know is in need of legal resources, please visit their website at transgenderlawcenter.org/resources for more info. And again, thank you to everyone who has donated so far. We have raised, I believe, like $600 something, which is insane. So keep them coming. Thank you all so much for your support.
Yeah, it is amazing. Like, I know this means a lot to my family too, with them having 2 genderqueer children, that being myself, and I've got a brother who is female to male transgender, who has always been worried about like working a real job while being publicly open about their gender identity, you know, taking testosterone. So like, if you like try to claim they're faking or something, it's like, dude, look at how hairy his legs are. Like, what are you saying? So yeah, any support for the people that really need it, it's very much appreciated. Legal support is not always easy to find. especially in these times. So any donations you make, no matter how big, no matter how small, are very much appreciated. And then, of course, if you need something cool to donate for, or incentive to donate for, remember, you can choose which platform of Spider-Man 2000 is ran. And let me tell you something. N64 is an interesting version of the game, but if you want to see the best-looking version of Spider-Man 2000, go for the Dreamcast version. And if you want to see the version you probably played as a kid with some of the silliest-looking graphics and whatnot, you go with the PlayStation version. Any way you slice it, though, Spider-Man 2000 is an awesome run, and I'm very much looking forward to watching Spyran do it later. Okay, guys.
I'm very excited for that run. N64 is currently in the lead, and Dreamcast is in second place, and PlayStation's in third place, just so you know what the standings are currently.
Yeah, I wonder, if I check Discord right now, I'm sure there's going to be an intense debate over which version is best amongst the runners. Oh, yeah, I do need to know, the run does not end when I finish this next race. It ends when I reach the credits. So time is not called when I finish the race, it's when I reach the credits. It's a weird timing method, but it's partially because, like, actually, I forget the exact reason why it is. I think it's, because, like, if you're going to potentially unlock a character or something. So the timing for Tournament and Tournament New Game Plus is not when this race ends. It's when you reach the credits. And this track, this is Boonta Eve Classic. If this sounds familiar, this is the race from Star Wars Episode 1 that was also recreated in Episode 1 Racer and Racer Arcade. It is the hardest track in the game. You know, you saw how tight a lot of those turns were on Gamorre, on the final track there. You ain't seen nothing yet, my friends. So please, send me your force powers to help me do good on this track. And I'm already doing poorly. So there's a sharp turn right at the start. And then we got to squeeze here. Oh boy. And now we got some S turns coming up. Turn left and right, then left and right. We got to go through these 3 spots here. It's best to let go of power slide. Wide turn. Into wide turn. And then up the hill. Get a spot to breathe here, because there's some barren land here. And suddenly, arches! We gotta go through these arches very carefully to get in this next spot. You kind of have to boost into for maximum time. You're trying to hold boost and not grind against the walls too much. We get the tunnel into a wide area right here. Wide turn, a few obstacles to dodge. And now, here's the part where I have to try my hardest not to curse out loud because this part sucks. Watch these turns. I'm not even going to say anything. You guys just observe these turns. Ugh. And let me remind you, I am playing as a character that has perfect handling, perfect speed, perfect acceleration. That is the middle of this track. Oh, and the funny thing is, even taking that slow, if I hadn't crashed there, that might have been one of my better lap times. And then let me throw something else out there. To unlock all characters in this game, you have to beat the in-game best lap record for every track, the in-game best 3 lap record for every track, and the best KO record for every track. And let me tell you, getting the 1 lap record in Boonta Eve Classic, even top runners will tell you, is one of the hardest things you can do. You have to get a lap time under 1 minute, 35.48 seconds. I repeat, 1 minute, 35.48 seconds. And even if I hadn't got that crash at the end, where I crashed into the stands, even that would still have been too slow by a couple seconds. It took me around a straight week of just working on this track alone just to get that time, which you have to get all the best 1 lap times on each track to unlock young Anakin. Yes, you could play as Episode 1 Anakin in this game, even though Episode 2 Anakin is in this game, creating a time paradox. And then after you unlocked all the hidden characters and then beat tournament mode with any of them, then you unlock Darth Vader, which makes for an even wider time paradox. But to get the 135 time needed, or the 135.48, like sub that time needed to unlock young Anakin and therefore unlock Darth Vader, was a task and a half. And even Damare, who's like the absolute master of pod racing video games, will tell you, no, this is... Yeah, he doesn't blame anybody that rage quit on this track as a kid. Alright, final lap. Let's see how well I do here. And I already flubbed it. This is one where, that early spot, you kind of have to let go of power slide for just a tiny bit, but I think I did it too much. I guess while I'm on this last lap, I might as well go ahead and say something. When the schedule was being announced, the heads of the event were talking about being nostalgic for Star Wars, and they miss being nostalgic for Star Wars. And I agree with that statement. I do kind of miss being nostalgic for Star Wars because, you know, not everything that's come out in the last 10 years has been of good quality. And there's just so much of it coming out that it feels like it's, what's the word I'm looking for? Overexposed. And it's a bit much. But what I will say is, no matter the quality of what comes out, or how much comes out, or whether or not it's appealing, what I will always say is, it will never take away from how much excitement, whatever it was that got you into a fandom or a series in the first place. It'll never take away anything from that. And we just gotta remember that sometimes. I know, like, you know, I liked The Last Jedi, but any of the other Star Wars movies that have come, and Rogue One, anything else I didn't really care for. Mandalorian I only watched for one season and everything else, but nothing is stopping me from popping in a VHS The Empire Strikes Back or A New Hope and being brought back to being 4 years old and being introduced to those movies for the first time. They still have that magic, they still have that power, and every once in a while, I think we just gotta remember that, whether it be Marvel, Star Wars, Star Trek, or whatever. That's the end of the race, but like I said, that is not the end of the run, because now we gotta skip these. And unfortunately, this does mean we do have to skip the cutscene that plays here. There is a cutscene that plays to show the winner. It's not interesting. It's just your character dancing in Jabba's palace. And some of the though, feel free to look the endings up on YouTube because Darth Vader dancing looks just as silly as you'd think. It makes Lego Star Wars look restrained. I wish I was kidding. Yep, fruiting recesses of Jabba's palace. Skip, 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 skip. One more load screen, and... time. And that, my friends, was Star Wars Racer Revenge for the PlayStation 2. Thank you so much for tuning into this part of License-a-thon. I'd like to give a big thank you to the Racer Revenge and Episode 1 Racer communities for all their support, all the advice they've given me, and teaching me how to run this game properly. And how to do well on the tracks. I want to give a big thanks to Team Fastest Furs. A lot of the people there have been cheering me on. Thank you so much. Thank you to all my friends and family that tuned in. Y'all are great. And thank you to everybody running License-a-thon in order to show off amazing runners of licensed games and to help raise money for Transgender Law Center. Everybody, please give the crew running this show a round of applause. They deserve it. And I think that's all from me. Thank you very much for watching, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Where can people find you if they want to see more?
If you want to see more, you're not going to see more Racer Revenge. My bread and butter is Soul Calibur speedruns, but you can find that at twitch.tv/AlexGGrooveWolf. Yes, that is a mouthful, but that is my username at the moment. But yes, Alex, the name, G-Groove, no hyphen, Wolf. That's where you can find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We will be right back as we get set up for our next run.